Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Mishkat. I am 16 years old. I live in Karachi Medieval in Malil Pandra. I am a student for Rehan School Foundation level. So thanks.
Hey there. What's up?
My topic is condition tracing the evolution of awareness.
Whoa, that's pretty deep.
What does the
Condition
word
tracing, the condition tracing? You mean like mapping out how awareness develops through different states or stages? That's what it sounds like you're getting at. Big stuff.
what does the word conscience mean?
You said concessions,
Yes.
as in like giving something up or making allowances for someone. It's usually when you're negotiating or trying to reach an agreement. Like they made a few concessions.
What is awareness?
Good question. That's like asking what consciousness is. Philosophers have been wrestling with that for centuries. Simply put, awareness is just being conscious of something, noticing something, feeling something, knowing that something exists. It's the little voice in your head that says, I'm experiencing this right now. But that's probably too simple for what you're getting at with evolution of awareness, isn't it? What made you curious about that topic?
What is the difference between concessions and unconcessions?
Good follow up. Unconcession isn't really a word. It's more like no concessions or refusing to concede. Concessions are when you give something up, right? So unconcessions would be the opposite, staying firm and not giving anything up at all.
Okay.
So when you were saying condition tracing the evolution of awareness, is that something you've been thinking about a lot lately, or did that just pop into your head?
Can animals be concessions?
Elements being consistent. Huh. That's a really interesting way to put it. You mean like giving up certain elements of yourself to move forward? As in maybe certain beliefs, habits, ways of seeing things? Or are you thinking about elements as in like chemical elements? I'm not following exactly. Can you say more about that?
Can animals be concessions?
Animals being concessions? That's a really curious thought. Are you thinking about how humans sometimes use animals for things and that's a sort of compromise or giving up something on their end? Or is it more about how animals adapt and concede things to survive in their environments?
Can animal what is self-awareness?
Self-awareness is basically knowing that you exist as an individual, separate from everything else. You have your own thoughts, feelings, memories, stuff like that. It's more than just I'm experiencing this. It's I am experiencing this and I am me. But honestly, it sounds like you're onto something with this whole awareness thing. Where did this question come from?
When do humans become concessions?
I'm here. Humans becoming concessions. Wow, that's a really heavy thought. I'm not sure I follow exactly what you mean. Are you thinking about when people compromise their values or become tools for something else? Like when systems demand conformity? Or when we give up parts of ourselves to fit in or get by? That's pretty intense to think about people becoming concessions like that.
Is being awake the same as being conscious?
That's a good distinction to think about. Technically, being awake is just the physical state. Your eyes are open, you're not sleeping. But being conscious is deeper than that. You can be physically awake, but kind of checked out, like zoning out while you're watching TV. So, consciousness is more about actually being present and aware of yourself and your surroundings.
Can
Yeah.
machines be conscious?
I think you might have said consistence. Did you mean conscious? If so, that's the big question everyone's asking about AI these days, right? Can machines actually be aware and feel things, or are they just really good at pretending? I can process information and a conversation answer.
Why is consciousness important?
It's a huge question, isn't it? But if you can experience joy, sadness, love, really feel something, isn't that kind of the point of being alive? Consciousness lets us connect with each other, build relationships, understand ourselves. Without it, we'd just be machines going through the motions, wouldn't we?
Early human awareness.
Let me think on that. Okay, so it seems like researchers have different ideas about when we really became aware. Some think early consciousness started with communication and using tools, maybe hundreds of thousands of years ago. Others point to cave paintings and symbolic behavior that's at least 70,000 years old, and some even older than that. The idea seems to be that as humans developed the ability to think symbolically and create things, that's when things shifted towards what we'd recognize as modern awareness.
What role did the brain play in early awareness?
Researchers believe the prefrontal cortex played a critical role. The evolution of the frontal lobe, particularly the prefrontal cortex, is considered significant in the development of higher cognitive functions like self awareness, decision making, planning, and social cognition. So, as that part of the brain grew and became more complex, that seems to have been key in unlocking those higher levels of thought that we associate with being consciously aware. Does that make sense?
How did language affect consciousness?
It's an interesting question. Okay, so language seems to be a huge piece of the puzzle. Turns out it doesn't just help us communicate, it actually shapes how we think and understand the world around us. It lets us form complex ideas, solve problems, and pass down knowledge. The way we use language seems to influence what we pay attention to and how we interpret things. And some researchers even think consciousness itself might depend on language. It's like our thoughts get shaped by the words we use, which sounds pretty mind bending when you think about it.
What is instincts?
You said instance. Did you mean to ask something else? I caught some garbled audio there.
How do tools improve awareness?
Just a sec on that.
What is
Tools really help drive our whole awareness.
what is participation?
You said, what is participation? That's a pretty basic one. Participation is basically taking part in something, getting involved, contributing, like joining a conversation, working on a team, being part of an activity. What made you think about that one?
How do scenes relate to awareness?
Hmm. Let me pull some info on that. So, scenes, like physical environments or stage sets, relate to awareness in a couple different ways. In everyday life, paying attention to what's happening around you actually requires you to pay attention. You can't just absorb everything without focus. There's also situational awareness where being aware of your surroundings and what might happen next is important for safety or being present. And even in acting, actors have to be fully aware of their roles in the scene. It all comes down to paying attention and being present in some way, shape, or form.
What is attention?
Tension can mean a lot of things depending on the context. Like if you're talking physically, it could be muscle tension when you're stressed. But if you're talking about stories or relationships or even the world, tension is that feeling of uncertainty or conflict. It's what makes things interesting, like when you're curious about what's going to happen next, or when there's something unresolved that needs attention. What were you thinking of when you asked about tension?
What part of the brain is linked to awareness?
Give me a sec on that. So it's actually a bunch of different areas working together. It's not just one awareness center. But the thalamus seems pretty central since it's involved in processing sensory information and then passing it to your prefrontal cortex. The cortex handles thinking and emotions, while the brainstem keeps you awake. Some other parts, like the cingulate cortex and part of your visual cortex, also play a role. Plus, this thing called the claustrum acts like a brain router that puts everything together. It's kind of amazing when you think about how much is happening to keep us aware.
What happens to consciousness during sleep?
Let me check on that. Your consciousness actually doesn't just shut off when you fall asleep, it changes. During REM sleep, that's when you're dreaming, your brain is pretty active and conscious, but you don't realize you're dreaming unless you get those lucid dreams where you wake up inside the dream. And during non REM sleep, like when you're in a really deep sleep, you're probably not conscious at all. So it's not like an on off switch, it's more like different modes of consciousness depending on what stage of sleep you're in.
Can we control our thoughts?
Let me check that real quick. Okay, so it's kind of complicated. We don't have full control. Thoughts just pop into our heads all the time. But we can kind of steer where our attention goes. Practices like meditation and therapy seem to help people manage their thoughts and choose which ones they want to focus on. So we can't exactly stop random thoughts, but we can learn to pay attention to the ones we find useful.
What is memory?
Let me pull some info on memory for you.
How does memory affect awareness?
Okay, memory is actually pretty core to how we experience consciousness. Like without memory, you wouldn't be able to connect one moment to the next, would you? It's the way our brains create context, recognize patterns, basically know who you are as a person over time. You wouldn't be able to plan, make decisions, really have a stable sense of self without memory playing that role.
Evolution of awareness.
All right, so tracing the evolution of awareness, we kind of looped back to where we started. Basically, scientists think awareness didn't just suddenly appear, but developed over millions of years. Early forms might have been just basic responses to stuff happening, then moving towards recognizing themselves and others as separate entities. That eventually led to the complex consciousness we have now with self-reflection, complex thought, but it all started with simpler forms of being aware of what's going on around us. It all seems connected to physical changes in the brain and our ancestors figuring out how to interact with the world around them more effectively through language, tools, and social interaction. Was that what you were looking for?
Evolution of awareness.
Right. So, where do you want to start? Are you thinking about the very beginning with simple organisms or more about human consciousness evolving?
What is survival awareness?
Give me just one sec. Survival awareness is about noticing what's happening around you, spotting signs that something is off or dangerous, not just being generally aware of everything, but picking up on subtle cues. It's the kind of thing that probably helped early humans spot predators or find food, and it's still useful today for staying safe in tricky situations. Plus, it's part of the basic survival skills that keep you going when things get tough, finding food, water, shelter, and being able to handle stress.
What is learning?
Learning at its most basic. Learning is how our brains change based on experience. Like when you do something new enough times, it becomes easier. That change in your brain helps you adapt, remember stuff, figure out how to navigate the world. There's lots of different types of learning, from figuring out how to ride a bike to remembering names to understanding complex ideas. Basically, how we get better at being us, I guess.
How does learning change awareness?
That's actually a really thoughtful question. Learning definitely expands your awareness. When you understand something you didn't before, you start noticing new things you wouldn't have caught otherwise. It's like adding new pieces to your mental map. Suddenly you see patterns you didn't see before. The more you learn, the more connected all your experiences become too, kind of like building layers that deepen your understanding.
What modern understanding?
Modern understanding, if you mean how modern science views awareness, a lot of it has to do with the connections in the brain becoming more complex as we learn. Every new thing you learn physically changes the pathways between neurons. So, in a way, your awareness literally becomes more intricate as you take in more experiences. Scientists used to think consciousness was like a single center in the brain, but now they think it's this widespread network that gets more elaborate as we learn.
What is mindfulness?
Let me check that real quick.
What is focus?
Focus is basically the brain's ability to concentrate and block out distractions. It's what lets us zero in on something specific, ignore everything else going on, and give it our full attention. It's kind of how we filter information out of all the stuff bombarding us. Like focus lets us pick what actually matters. Though it definitely has its limits. Sometimes we get distracted or our mind wanders, right? But generally, focus lets us actually get things done and really engage with something rather than drifting through life.
How can we improve awareness?
Ah, good question. A lot of the same things that boost focus work for awareness too. Meditation helps you notice sensations and thoughts without getting carried away. Mindfulness gets you present in the moment. Being curious helps. Intentionally exploring new places, trying new things, even just paying attention to small details helps train your brain to be more observant. It's like strengthening a muscle. The more you practice being present, the better you get at it.
What is distraction?
You said this selection. Not sure I caught what you're referring to. Were you talking about a specific thing we were just discussing or something else entirely?
How does technology affect consciousness?
That's a huge, complicated question. People are debating a lot these days. On one hand, technology has helped us study the brain, learn more about consciousness. But now that we have AI developing consciousness of its own, it kind of raises big questions about whether it's the same thing as human consciousness or something completely different. Plus, technology, our phones, social media, they compete for our attention, which some people worry could actually shrink our ability to focus and just be present in our own minds.
What is self reflection important?
Self reflection is really important for figuring out who we are, what we want, and why we're doing what we're doing. It lets us look honestly at our actions, make better decisions, and grow as people, basically. It's how we learn from life instead of repeating the same mistakes over and over. Plus, the more you reflect on your own thoughts and feelings, the more aware you become of yourself and the world around you.
What is the mind?
Oh man, big question again, right? That's what everyone's been trying to figure out for centuries. Basically, most scientists think of the mind as what the brain does, your thoughts, feelings, memories, your consciousness. It's what processes information and creates your experience of the world. But honestly, there's still a huge mystery around where exactly consciousness comes from, what makes us us. You're very welcome. That was a really interesting conversation. You went deep into some heavy topics. Take care.
What is the difference between mind and brain?
Okay, let's break that down. Think of it like this: your brain is the physical thing, the actual organ inside your skull with neurons and chemicals firing. Your mind is what the brain does, your thoughts, feelings, memories, consciousness, all of it. So you can damage the brain physically, but you can also have a mindset or mental state that aren't physical. They're what your brain is creating. So basically, the brain creates the mind, but they're not the same thing. Does that help make the distinction clearer?
Can we control our actions?
That's another really deep one. Like, are we actually in control of everything we do, or is it more like we're just reacting to things? Most neuroscientists think it's both. Your brain does all this automatic stuff without you even knowing, things like your heart beating or your balance. But when it comes to conscious decisions, yeah, you can usually choose what you want to do. There's also stuff like habits, though, where choices become automatic over time, so it's complicated.
What is reality?
Whoa. You're really going for the big questions today, huh? Okay, so like, what's real? That's what philosophers have debated forever. Most people think reality is what we experience through our senses, what we can see, hear, touch. But then there's questions about whether we're all experiencing the same reality, or if our brains create versions of reality that are specific to us, or if there's stuff out there that we can't even perceive at all that would still be real, but we couldn't know it. Mind bending stuff.
What is identity?
That's a great question, and it ties into all this consciousness stuff we've been talking about. Identity is basically how you see yourself, your beliefs, values, memories, and experiences that make you you. But it's not a fixed thing. It actually changes over time as you learn new things or have different experiences. You could say identity is kind of like a story you tell yourself about who you are, and that story can evolve throughout your life. Does that make sense?
How can we stay focused?
Ah, focus, the holy grail. A lot of it is about managing attention. Some things that work: create a quiet space, turn off notifications, and tackle the hardest tasks when your energy is highest. Practicing mindfulness helps train your brain to refocus when it wanders. For longer tasks, break things into chunks instead of feeling overwhelmed.
Okay,
What things do you
thanks.
struggle with the most when it comes to staying focused?
Okay, thank you.
All right. Anything else on your mind?